Hello, all you wonderful people around the world. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk about the coordinated attack that is growing against leftist organizations, or really just anti war organizations. Leftists might not even apply to a few of them, but anti war, anti imperialist organizations across the country. And it is coordinated, very much seems to be coordinated attack on them. I've got some more evidence on that. I covered some of it the last live stream, but we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about a police raid that on a newspaper, a small town newspaper owner that basically killed her, caused her demise, I guess, to put it nicely. While they were raiding her, or just after they raided her residence, because she owned a small town newspaper and had the nerve in America to print some of the truth. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into also I feel like I should start calling it the multipolar world report, the multipolar world update. We're seeing the increase in the multipolar world, the strength of the multipolar world. The U.S. doesn't run things alone any longer, and so I have updates on Niger as well as updates on BRICS, and of course they have a relation in terms of the growing multipolarity of this world. But I have that and much more. Thanks for being here. Please click thumbs up. Please click share. Please leave a comment. Even if you got nothing to say, thanks for supporting this and helping to grow this show. We're now over 50,000 followers on Rumble, rumble.com/Lee Camp. And if you haven't yet, please go follow over there. It's free to do that. Okay, let's get into it. So I covered some of this story a couple episodes ago about the New York Times attack piece. It was a heavily researched, New York Times it was something like 6 or 8 writers in this, all to coordinate to put together the puzzle pieces of this dastardly web showing that somebody with a lot of money actually is funding peace or pro-peace organizations, which is horrifying when you think about it. Somebody's got a lot of money and they're trying to promote peace and community. Why, God? That's what I picture the New York Times editor's room. Why? Okay. I'm going to put a mere 8 of you. I mean, imagine what's going on in the news world, legacy media world these days, the way it's been crushed for the most part. And the New York Times has 8 reporters to put full time on a story of how a rich guy wants to promote peace organizations and fund peace organizations and outlets. So let's see. This was the original article that I tore apart the other day. It's about Roy Singham there on the right, and he's married to the co-founder of Code Pink. Code Pink, well-known activist organization, anti-war organization, anti-imperialism organization, and the other co-founder, Medea Benjamin. I've worked with both of them. I saw Jody Evans just the other day when I was filming her and Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's get arrested in front of the Justice Department for freedom for Assange. But I've worked with them a lot. I've performed, spoken at events for Code Pink, and they're always doing good work. They really are. But I wouldn't even call them a leftist organization. They are really just an anti-war, anti-imperialist organization. Now, of course, those two align very much. But so this is how this works. This is why I'm giving you this update. This is why it's basically a part 2 of this, is that this is a coordinated attack. So first, they put together a New York Times piece. It actually first was in the Daily Beast. So the Daily Beast puts out their little several months ago, oh my God, the left-wing organizations are funded by he's not a billionaire, but a multi-millionaire. And how dare left-wing organizations have money? They're not allowed to have money. They're supposed to sit there and beg you for $3 while all the far right fucking fascist organizations have all the money. This is clearly wrong. So, Daily Beast did their little thing. New York Times then puts a dozen reporters or whatever, 8 reporters on it to deeply investigate. And then they come out with their report. Now, see, the report is not designed to just be a report. It's designed to partially, yes, influence your view of organizations like Code Pink and the People's Forum is another one that Roy Singham funds helps fund in New York City and other organizations. But it's part of it's to manufacture your consent to destroy these organizations. But then there's a greater impact. Then Wikipedia jumps in and they say, okay, Wikipedia says, okay, well, their entry can only be these official news sources. So if New York Times does a hit piece on them, that's the official source. And you basically can't change anything that the New York Times has said in your Wikipedia entry. So they did this to me, and it worked like clockwork. Step one was, this is basically when Redacted Tonight got its biggest. Was about 2016 was when we had, millions of followers, millions of viewers, and it was really growing day after day. And so there was I don't remember whether it was 2016 or 2017, but New York Times does their hit piece, full of so much bullshit that when I wrote an article picking apart all of their bullshit, they were forced to print multiple retractions, which is very rare in the New York Times. They try not to print retractions, but they did have to retract several parts of the article on me trashing a comedian for daring to be anti-war and anti-imperialist. So New York Times does their hit piece. Then a month or two later, NPR Weekend Edition does their hit piece. Then Wikipedia says, hey, New York Times said it, NPR said it. So now Wikipedia has been changed to just reflect all their garbage. It's just, my Wikipedia is just Russia, 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 Russia. Did we mention Russia? That's my Wikipedia now. I believe they say my name is Lee Russia Camp. And so it's like this tick, tick, tick of this process to malign and tarnish and define people that are anti-war and anti-imperialist when they start to get a platform. So that's done to me. And then, of course, it allowed the next step is the social media platforms then can use that and say, well, New York Times and NPR and Wikipedia says he's a Russian agent, so we are now entitled to suppress and destroy his platform. So Facebook shadow banned, Twitter heavily suppressed. Then, of course, there was the final nail in the coffin of deleting the show from the airwaves via U.S. sanctions, followed by the YouTube page gets deleted. It's still banned around the world. I imagine it always will be. So it's like this. It really is coordinated, and they have to tick off each of these. Well, we'll get things running with a news report, and then we'll say, oh, the news report says it, so the Wikipedia says it. And then they'll say, oh, the Wikipedia says it, so social media can do it. And then social media does it, and then they go to the government, and they say, well, and the government goes, oh, my God, we got to act on this. Well, now we're seeing that exact same process with these organizations, with this funder, Roy Singham, with Code Pink, with People's Forum, with Tricontinental is another one that he helps fund, run by Vijay Prashad, who does great work. So let me show you the latest update, which is where this is headed. Is you have the reports, then you have the politicians jump in. And the first one to want to put his name all over it is Marco Rubio. So Marco Rubio, this is from Marco Rubio's website. It says, Rubio probes funding for organizations that promote the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, agenda in the U.S. Now, as the New York Times said multiple times in the report, that these people have said they are not told what to say by China. They are not connected to the Chinese government yet. And New York Times knew that it'd be libelous to say they were. So instead, the New York Times kept saying something like spouting Chinese talking points, spouting Chinese propaganda, furthering Chinese propaganda. They use very careful wording because they can't just say part of the Chinese government. Now, Marco Rubio is he's walking a little farther on the line, but organizations that promote CCP agenda. Okay, well, what does that mean? They're listening to the Chinese Communist Party? No, it could just mean that, like, let's say China says the U.S. shouldn't be bombing countries around the world, and then I or some other organization or outlet says the U.S. shouldn't be bombing countries around the world, and then they go, "Yeah, he's promoting CCP. He just said the U.S. shouldn't bomb other countries. He's promoting CCP, government target points." But anyway, according to the New York Times, many progressive, that's Marco Rubio also. There's multiple things where it's like part of this is part of the coordinated attack, and part of it is Marco Rubio trying to stain even further than just what we've seen. Like, he's trying to tarnish the term progressive. These are like, several of these are leftist organizations, which I know that leftist is used as a bad word if you're on Fox News. I like the term leftist. I think you should be a leftist. I think you should stand for anti-war, anti-imperialism, anti-capitalism. Capitalism is just destroying the entire planet in the span of a few hundred years, to the fact that we're now seeing the collapsing of all of our ecosystems. And of course, yes, that's consumerism, but that's consumerism via capitalism, or I guess vice versa, capitalism via consumerism. Anyway, he wants to say, it's progressives. It's just progressive organizations, right? Who lives in Shanghai and has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Yet none of the entities tied to Singham have registered under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Well, as they said in the New York Times article, they are not taking any talking points from, like, Chinese government does not tell them what to say in any shape or form. But that doesn't matter to these folks. They just want to tarnish them and trash them and destroy the anti-war organizations as much as possible. So Caitlin Johnstone did an article about this, and she did a great job of breaking it down. Citing the McCarthyite smear piece by the New York Times, Marco Rubio published a letter on Wednesday that he had sent to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, calling for the investigation of American leftist anti-war groups, claiming they had tied to the CCP. Rubio listed 9 organizations that he said should be investigated for potential violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And by the way, if I need to repeat this, FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, was initially designed to literally be you were only supposed to register as a foreign agent if you were a literal lobbying firm for a foreign government. It was not meant to go after media, press organizations such as myself when I was on a news channel. It was meant to go after literal lobbying firms. But they've now used it because that wasn't enough, right? It's just stopping lobbying firms wasn't enough. So they've used it to go after any outlet that dares be against the American empire and fight against it in words even. So now they're saying, RT America, which, by the way, was the last 4 years was owned by an American company, but that didn't stop them from saying, you got to register as FARA, foreign agent. We did not. Many people think I had to register as a foreign agent. I did not. RT America had to register under this stupid bullshit. But they then went after the CGTN, the Chinese media outlet. Of course, for some odd reason, they didn't go after BBC or CBC, the Canadian broadcast, even though they're government entities. They're right. They're the same as RT America was, government entities taking money from a government to produce media. They, for some odd reason, didn't have to register as a foreign agent. I don't know why that could be. I just racking my brain why it was that BBC didn't have to register. But most glaringly in all of this is if FARA was initially meant to target lobbying firms, people that are literally taking money from a government to do expressly lobby on their behalf. Like, that is the job. That is what they're meant to do. I have the money from you. I will now try and push your agenda of your government in the U.S. government. If that were the case, front and center, who should register as FARA, Foreign Agent Registry Act? Any guesses? How about fucking AIPAC? Fucking AIPAC. AIPAC is the quintessential example of exactly what they were talking about with Farah. And by the way, fun fact, not implying anything here. Not implying anything. Not implying anything. No, I'm actually literally not implying anything, but AIPAC was supposed to register. They were told to register as a foreign agent before, this is in the 1960s, and they just never did it. And basically during the push where they were being told to register by the U.S. government, Kennedy was killed. And after that, it was never talked about again. I don't think they were never pushed to register as foreign agents. Now, I'm not saying that's what got Kennedy killed. I've covered what got Kennedy killed on multiple episodes. So you can go back and listen to all those. CIA. But anyway, so AIPAC would be the quintessential example, but they've never had to register as a foreign agent. Apparently they don't count. Anyway, Rubio's letter is just the latest in a rapidly escalating push, and I'm going to get into a couple other examples as well, push within the U.S. government to use FARA to persecute anti-war activist Chinese nationals in the United States and those deemed insufficiently hostile toward China. Under Biden, FARA has been invoked to target Black liberation activists like the African People's Socialist Party. Okay, that quote got ahead of me because I was just going to remind you all of that. I hate when I read quotes that beat me to the punch. Who put that quote on my goddamn show? All right, now I can't find it though. Okay then. Where the hell? Maybe I closed it. All right. I don't have it up here right now. Anyway. Many of you know, oh, there it is. Oh, that's why I couldn't find it, because it was the Tampa Bay Times. Whoever thinks anything covered in the Tampa Bay Times. I just saw that and I was like, nah. But yes, because they are headquartered in Florida and St. Louis, so that's why it's in the Tampa Bay Times. Anyway, here's the article. I interviewed him, by the way, for an hour. I played a clip the other day. St. Petersburg Uhuru members indicted in Russian influence case. They are the African People's Socialist Party, and that's their chairman, Amalia Stella. And this is very similar. It's like, oh, you were saying things that align with Russian talking points, so we've indicted you for, literally, they said weaponized free speech, which I thought free speech was supposed to be legal in this country. But thank you, duly noted, for the donation, by the way. Says, fun fact of corruption, AIPAC boast on their site 98% of AIPAC-backed candidates won their general election races in 2022. I did not know they boast that, but that's kind of sad. Okay, so this is another example of how the U.S. government right now is going after leftists and anti-war groups in a big way. Let's see. Under Biden, FARA has been invoked to target Black liberation activists for criticizing U.S. involvement in the Ukraine war and Chinese-American hotel workers and organizer Li Tang Henry Liang for advocating peaceful relations between the U.S. and China. Despite the complete emptiness of its claims, the article about Roy Singham and Code Pink, the article took no fewer than 11 people. Oh, I was understating it. I said 8. 11 people to write at the New York Times were involved in this bullshit McCarthyite hit piece. No attempt is made to refute Singham's claim in the article that he does not work. Here's his quote. Here's how Roy Singham defines himself. This is a near billionaire. He sold a software firm or whatever, internet company, for $800 billion. Sorry, $800 million, not $800 billion, $800 million. And he has donated a lot of that money to anti-war groups, leftist groups, etc. He says, I categorically deny and repudiate any suggestion that I am a member of, work for, take orders from, or follow instructions of any political party or government or their representatives. I am solely guided by my beliefs, which are my long-held personal views. No attempt is made to refute Singham's claim in the article, as Caitlin Johnstone says. As far as the actual data in their reporting, Singham is just some rich American using his money to promote values he supports in the same way rich Americans do every single day. The only reason it's framed as malevolent is because he's doing it in support of a country the U.S. government doesn't like and an ideology the U.S. government doesn't approve of, which only makes sense if you're a propagandist for the New York Times. The Times noted that Singham is married to Code Pink co-founder Jody Evans, which you'd think would be taken as a very clear sign that Singham is sincere in his opposition to U.S. imperialism rather than acting as a secret agent of the Chinese government. This is a great point here, is the New York Times acts like the fact that he's married to a founder of an anti-war group further proves that he's an agent of China, when in fact, doesn't that kind of prove that you're legit in your just anti-war beliefs? Like, if you find the co-founder of Code Pink to be an awesome person because she's anti-war, that shows that you really like just are anti-war. You want to be around anti-war people. You want to be around pro-peace people. This is someone who just has these passions to create this kind of atmosphere around them. And instead they use it as proof somehow that he's nefarious because he's married to an anti-war activist. He's also married to someone who dare be anti-war. But this marriage, Caitlin Johnstone says, is bizarrely framed as making Singham more suspicious. Instead, making more suspicious, with lines like, Miss Evans declined to answer questions about funding from her husband, appearing in the text as though receiving funding from one's spouse would be some kind of damning revelation. And like her husband gave her money. What? How dare she? This is just it's all utter bullshit, and it's really disgusting. But like, it's amazing how well the propaganda can work on those who don't have a discerning view of the New York Times. If you go into reading the New York Times thinking it's generally showing you the truth, and then you read, oh my God, there's a global web. As I mentioned last time on the show, global web is only used when you want to make something seem nasty and nefarious. There's a global web, whereas you could say there's a global web of McDonald's, right? Because there is. Like, McDonald's literally has offices in China. McDonald's sells billions of dollars of shit in China. So McDonald's has a global web of Chinese collaboration. And yet no one ever calls it a global web when it comes to McDonald's because people don't view that as negative. But if you want to make something seem negative, you say global web. The reason legal experts said Singham's case is unusual when it comes to the question of FARA is because Singham is not a foreign agent. Meaning, well, I'll finish that in a second. He lives in China, but he's a U.S. citizen. He gives money to organizations which support China, but there are no laws against giving money to organizations that, like, believe China's doing well. He shares an office with a Chinese media company, appears to give them money, but there's no law against that either. The legal experts in question were probably New York Times lawyers telling reporters they can't falsely accuse U.S. citizens and their associates of being foreign agents on no basis whatsoever. So basically, this is what New York Times does, is they can't find any legality that the person has done wrong. The person's not behaving illegally as a criminal. So instead they say to their lawyers, what can we say? And the lawyers go, well, you could say his case is, I don't know, you can say his case is unusual. And then they go, ooh, that's good. That's good. It's unusual. And so they literally printed that his legal case is unusual. The New York Times reports that Singham associates with Chinese people, promotes information that serves the interest. So to McDonald's and Starbucks workers in China and Tesla and every American corporation that's in China, which is most of the big ones, they associate with Chinese people. In fact, they often have Chinese people as executives in their fucking offices in China. But no, that doesn't count as evil or a global web. New York Times says Singham associates with Chinese people, promotes information that serves the interests of the Chinese government, supports communism, opposes U.S. imperialism, and has an anti-war activist wife. What the New York Times does not report is one iota of information that Singham of the organization he supports has broken any U.S. laws. So, I can stop going through this because I don't need to relitigate it all. I did a whole segment on it before, but my point is that it's going further now. My last segment was just about how garbage this report is. Now you have Marco Rubio asking the U.S. government to go after Roy Singham and any organization he funds. So the next step would be for them to treat these organizations or people connected to these organizations the same way they've treated the Uhuru 3 or 4, the people with African Socialist Party, is to treat them the same, is to indict them, is to maybe have some sort of grand FBI raid where they break into the Code Pink house. And if you guys haven't heard of this, Medea Benjamin has a Code Pink house in Washington, D.C. that's all painted pink and pastel colors, mainly pink, covered in pink. So to see the FBI raid that pink house, that would be a new level of fucking fascism as they knock out the windows of a adorable pink Barbie house. Anyway, so Marco Rubio is doing this push. Those are the next steps. The other thing is that I haven't read it, but I've heard that the Wikipedia page of Roy Singham and Code Pink has already been changed to basically mirror the propaganda from the New York Times. And it's essentially impossible to change those things unless you were to get a different news organization that Wikipedia views as the same level as New York Times to say the opposite, which of course U.S. corporate news organizations are never going to say the opposite. They're never going to defend the likes of me or Roy Singham or Code Pink or something like that. Now, you might have an independent outlet such as myself or even something like Democracy Now! Defend Code Pink, etc. But that Wikipedia is not going to view that as legitimate on the level that it does the New York Times, even though the New York Times has an endless, aggressive, generations long record of lying and propaganda and promoting war and manufacturing consent and manufacturing death and destruction. I mean, it's just like, I've done segments on how the New York Times ignored the Holocaust throughout World War II. And by the way, the New York Times has been owned by the same family for like 100 years. And they essentially ignored the Holocaust while it was going on, even though it was well known that it was going on. Even when they would cover the Holocaust in there were like six articles that all of World War II where they covered the Holocaust. They essentially never mentioned Jews within any of it because they didn't want to acknowledge that this was Jews being killed in the Holocaust. They gave positive coverage to Hitler before World War II. But that's going back to World War II. Let's bring a little more recent. Completely false stories on, let's see, WMD. Completely false stories on Russiagate. Completely false stories on the Steele dossier. Completely false stories based on Hamilton 68, which we learned in the Twitter files, and we already knew if you had half a brain cell. Hamilton 68 had been exposed as utter bullshit, saying people are Russian bots when they're actually just human beings who happen to think. New York Times promoting the Cuban acoustic cannon fucking garbage. New York Times promoting the Syrian chemical weapon bullshit. New York Times completely ignoring the U.S. involvement in the bombing of the Nord Stream pipelines. New York Times acting like the Hunter Biden story was not legitimate when it has been proven completely legitimate. I mean, you could go down the list for a goddamn hour of all the bullshit that the New York Times has pumped out over the years, not denied. I mean, many of these articles you can still look up today and go, oh, wow, yeah, there it is. There's their fucking bullshit propaganda. Still up. Still share it with someone. You can go share someone. New York Times article saying the Cuban acoustic cannons are giving U.S. diplomats mild headaches and laziness, and some sort of futuristic weapon that no audio professional scientist could ever figure out how it works. Yeah, they're using that. They're using that. There's some sort of they're reconfiguring the 1950s automobiles in Cuba into space age acoustic weapons that break the laws of physics to just give diplomats headaches. And the New York Times will tell you that, and you can find that article up right now and send it to someone and say, "See, it's true. It's true. It's real." So, this is how this works. It's a step-by-step process. This is a coordinated attack on leftist anti-war organizations. And I'll just show you the Code Pink headline, by the way. McCarthyism is back. Together we can stop it. They put out an article, and many people have signed on to that article to defend them against this bullshit. But yeah, this is a coordinated attack. And to me, I think in a large scale, it shows that the U.S. empire is on the brink. You don't get this scared about anti-war organizations like Code Pink, that as much as I'd love for them to have millions of members, and as much as I'd love for those millions of members to then mob congressional hearings and force the hearing to shut down because we're not going to put up with your pro-war, pro just destruction of the globe, anti-life agenda anymore. As much as I'd love for that to be what Code Pink is, it's not. Code Pink is a great organization that has, a few thousand members, and whenever I'm speaking or a part of one of these events, there's less than 1,000 people there, often just a few hundred. And again, I'd love for that not to be the case, but that's the case. So for the U.S. empire, for the U.S. government to be this scared of organizations like Code Pink and the People's Forum and Tricontinental and others, it shows where the U.S. government is right now and where the U.S. empire is. Its empire of death and destruction. It's teetering, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it be afraid of things that it didn't used to be afraid of. You used to have to get pretty goddamn massive for the U.S. You used to have to be MLK level for the U.S. to decide they needed to stop you, to arrest you, to lock you up. And now they seem to be going after everyone. But speaking of that, well, actually, so I'm about to get to, it's an easy segue to this amazing video of U.S. troops, U.S. soldiers admitting why they really joined the U.S. military. And these are soldiers in uniform. This is not soldiers that have a bone to pick because they left the military and they were traumatized, and now they're like, this is bullshit. Now, I love those guys. Those are my best friends. Those are great people, like Matthew Ho, for example, who realized how awful it is and then speak out against it. But these are young kids in uniform, and I don't even think they know that they're not supposed to say these things. But all right, so I'm going to show that in 1 second. I just wanted to pause real quick and say thank you so much for being here. There are only 100 tickets left to my live Zoom comedy special. This is my first new stand-up comedy hour in years. It's my first ever stand-up comedy hour via Zoom so that anyone can watch it anywhere. It is, let's see, I'll pull it up. But it's all brand new. You haven't seen it anywhere. And there's only 100 tickets left, $5 tickets. It's only $5. There are only 100 tickets left for the September 2nd show. I've added a second show, September 13th at 1 p.m. So it's earlier so that people in Europe time zones can have an easier time watching it. The title of the show is Not Enough Friends to Bury a Body. And you can check it out the September 2nd or September 13th. Now, I know for those of you in the United States, probably the September 13th show would not be easy to attend. Not many people are able to do 1 p.m. In the day, in the middle of a Wednesday. But anyway, either way, 100 tickets left to the September 2nd event, meaning it's nearing sold out. And I think you're really going to love the show. I'm excited about it. Like I said, this is my first time ever doing this. It's a little more personal than any of my comedy's been before. But at the same time, I still go after all of the topics you expect me to. So don't expect there not to be politics in it. Don't expect me not to talk about the collapsing of our empire and what it means and why we should actually be rooting for a multipolar world. But you'll get that too. But this is also more personal than my comedy has ever been before. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a great goddamn time. At $5, can you really argue with $5? Can you really argue with that? Seriously. It's gonna be a great time. So check it out. That's at you can find it at leecamp.com, but it's at leecamp.simpletix.com. Simple ticks, not like the parasite that sucks your blood. Although I bet you Simple Ticks, TICKS, is probably a bizarre website. There's probably some weird blood sucking stuff going on there. But no, this is leecamp.simpletixtix.com, and you can grab your tickets there for $5. Okay. So let's keep it going. In a few minutes, by the way, we'll be going just to rumble.com/leecamp if you guys want to get a jump on that, as well as my locals page. So that's rumble.com/leecamp. But all right, so this is from Mint Press. Mint Press does great work. I had a show with them for about 9-10 months, and they're awesome. So here we go. Now, as far as I can tell, this video doesn't have audio, but it's got all the words written on there. So I'll go ahead. Also, because it'd be weird for the podcast, I'll go ahead and read what they're saying as it goes. But for those of you watching, you can listen. It'd be weird to just have a 40 seconds of silence in the middle of the podcast. By the way, if you guys prefer podcasts, this is called The Lee Camp Show on Spotify. Why did you join the Army? For my mom's papers. Why'd you join the Army? For money, she says. Why'd you join the Army? For free food. Why'd you join the Army? I don't know. I don't know why I joined the Army. Why'd you join the Army? I joined because my dad asked me to join. Why'd you join the Army? I needed to pay for college. Thank you. So now I'm not saying that was everybody they asked. You might notice a theme of these soldiers, which is none of them, maybe one girl, but almost none of them are white. And one of them explicitly says, I joined the Army to get my mom papers, meaning she's an immigrant. So I think that you could easily argue that, oh, well, that didn't show the young white males that are joining up because I want to kill people for the Lord and Uncle Sam, or whatever they'd say. I'm sure there are some of those. I'm sure this video left those out. I'm not going to act like those soldiers don't exist, but I think this speaks to the fact that there are a large number in the U.S. military that join up for exactly these reasons that you just heard. They join up for to get immigration papers, to get money for their schooling, for their college, to get money for other things, to get food, to have their food and their life charges covered for many years, to get health care. There's health care if you are a soldier or a veteran. Yeah, sometimes you got to wait years, but it exists. All of these things, these are the real reasons that a lot of people join the U.S. military. They join because they're trying to get things like health care and food and papers and this both speaks to what the U.S. military is. There are far fewer people joining up anymore just because they believe the U.S. empire is just doing good. And I'm here to do all of the good with the big thing that does the good. That kind of attitude doesn't exist as much anymore. Again, I'm not saying there wasn't any, but they have to get people to sign up for this war machine, for the largest organized murder machine the world has ever known. By the way, that's not arguable. Even if you were the most right-wing lunatic in the world, each of those terms you can't argue with. It is the largest. It is the largest the world has ever seen, both in terms of number of people, number of bases, and amount of money. And so the only words you'd really argue with, you might argue with the word organized. It's not very organized. The only word you could argue with in that title is murder, but they do murder. Even far right wingers know they murder. So it's not really arguable. So it's in many ways, really always, I'd say, but it's inarguable that this is the largest organized murder machine the world has ever known. And people less and less, these kids, and these are kids, man. I mean, I know it makes me sound like an old man, but many of them are fucking kids. These kids join up because they're trying to pay for things like college, like healthcare, like food, like housing, like an education, like a better life. Many just view it as a path to a better life. So it's basically like if you go into the military and agree to kill or possibly be killed for us for a few years, if you do that, then you can come out the other side. You're more likely to get hired places. You're more likely to have enough money to start a life. You're often more likely to land a spouse, right? Because a lot of people find veterans is a very respectful thing. And so all these things, and a lot of it is basically they're offered the promise of socialism. If you think about it. And to me, I don't know where I first heard that as the dynamic, but even though I kind of knew it, hearing it said like that was mind-blowing to me. People sign up for the military for the promise of socialism. They sign up for the military for the socialist aspects of our society that it has failed to give people. Now, I know that the VA medical care is often shit and all of those things, but that doesn't change why they signed up. They signed up thinking they'd have medical care. So it's really about what they think, whether they get it or not. But many of them are signing up for the promises of socialism. They're signing up for food, for housing, for education, for health care. These are all things that should just be guaranteed anyway. Sorry, did that come out a bit aggressive? I'm not sure. So anyway, I thought it was a very important video. Okay, I want to get on to some information about BRICS, some information about the rise of the multipolar world. I think I'm going to start calling this the multipolar, the multipolar update or something, the multipolar report. Not the whole show. The whole show is not the multipolar report, but I think I might start calling a segment the multipolar report because it seems like this is coming up more and more, which is exciting in many ways. All right, the rest of this live stream will be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It is free to go over there, rumble.com/Lee Camp. And please, when you get there, make sure you click the follow button. We're almost to 53,000 followers. I'd love to get that up to 60 soon. But anyway, please make sure you do that and put the link in the comment thread. Also at Locals, this live stream will continue as well. If you guys feel like you've so far gotten 38 cents out of this episode, then please become a member at leecamp.net. That will take you to my Locals page, leecamp.net or leecamp.locals.com. That'll take you to my Locals page. Become a member over there. It's 38 cents an episode, which amounts to $6 a month. And you get all the live streams whenever you want. Instead of them disappearing, you get to the Q&As on several days. I spend 15 minutes chatting with those of you at Locals exclusively. You get exclusive content. You get my book. You get my new book, Dangerous Ideas, the moment you sign up. So leecamp.net will take you there. And all right.